How far have we come in this previous term of 3 years in politics? And how far do we need to go? It's a constant debate, but every politician will always say we need to do more. So in my fourth question to our political agricultural spokespeople for the five major parties, I started out by asking them, pointing out that farmers are increasingly expected to engage electronically now with business services and government agencies for regulation, as well as rural health services in geographically isolated communities was forced to operate on slow download speeds or data caps. I asked them all, what will your party do to improve rural broadband services?
We just announced a few days ago another $60 million on top of the tens of millions that have been going out there. We've been identifying black spots. We've been identifying areas around the country that have been struggling to get good broadband. We're getting up into the high 90% now, but that doesn't mean to say that each and every farmer, has access to it. And we've been getting alongside the third tier providers, that's the wireless broadband providers who can provide local solutions. The big players that have had, hundreds of millions of dollars over the last couple of governments to roll out the backbone haven't always got to those little valleys. And so we have to give some money into those small providers that do provide realistic wireless solutions. We do need to increase and update the cell phone network that we have. Increasingly, broadband is coming through the cell phone network. As I say, the black spots rollout that we've committed to, and other cell phone towers that have to be connected back through to the broadband network. They will be the way that we get broadband and better communication out to all our farmers. There will always be the odd one that probably has to rely on satellite, but we're getting better upload speeds, download speeds, and cell phone networks out into rural New Zealand.
David Bennett from the National Party.
Well, I think our connectivity is fundamental at the moment, and COVID really showed that you may have to work from home or on farm. We always are working from home, but you need to be connected with the rest of the world, and you need to be connected within your communities as well. And it's really important in all parts of the farming community, from education of our children to health, as you say, and also to the ability to have best practice on farm. So the National Party has a very proud history in that area with the rural broadband scheme. If you look at that, that would be probably one of the best schemes in the world for rolling out broadband in New Zealand and in the rural and urban communities through the two different phases of the scheme. That scheme has been carried on by the current government, and we thank them for that, but there's still a lot more work to be done. The original scheme had about 400 sites that were prepared or proposed, and about 150 of those have been completed. So as you can see, there's a lot of room still to be done there to get up to where we planned it to be. And also you can see now in the communities that those number of sites would not be sufficient, that there is a lot of areas that are black spots and would want to have that technology as well. So we want to see an extension of that scheme, and we want to see that scheme rolled out as fast as possible, and we don't want any delays in that. So we're committed to that in our agricultural policy, of really having a strong emphasis on connectivity. Along with that, other infrastructure as well. So roading, for example, big investment that National is proposing in that area, which is infrastructure for communities, but also in that rural health area, as talked about, the rural health commitments around having a third medical school with a rural health focus is really important as well, and that would enable delivery of services through technology as well.
Eugenie Sage from the Green Party.
Well, out door knocking in the Littleton Harbour Basin recently got a few complaints about the really slow speed of broadband, particularly during COVID, where you've got a number of people in the household wanting to get onto the internet. So I don't think it's just rural areas, it's some suburban areas as well. and really acknowledge the importance of ready access to broadband. So that was certainly an initiative that was started under the last government. So continuing to invest and working out what are the priorities for upgrading services. I know, for example, on the west coast of the South Island, there's a big black spot there for cell coverage. Under this government, there's been sort of some more temporary repeaters put in to try and improve that, and areas like that are definitely a priority for more investment and infrastructure to enable that connectivity, which is such a critical part of all of our lives.
Mark Cameron from the ACT Party.
That's a simple answer. We've just got to continue in the funding of it. I mean, sadly, in the far north, I see this every day. We're right down to dial-up speed. So the ACT Party supports it, is very supportive of the continuation and funding of the necessary technologies that embolden, the framework around broadband. We have to do it. The simple fact is we've got small businesses in many, many isolated areas that their greatest pitfall is geographical isolation and their inability to access technology through the broadband system that we currently have and technologies we currently have.
Mark Patterson from the New Zealand First Party.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, I live in a rural area. I travel through rural areas all the time and experience the connectivity issues, and it's brought up regularly. So we do have to invest more. We have invested massively through the RBI2 project, and the Provincial Growth Fund has actually also got into that space because it is really important, and we want to see the Provincial Growth Fund continue. Labor are going to gut it. We want to keep that level of investment where it is now, so that we can do exactly those things that you're talking about, because it is, and I think the COVID thing put it in stark relief, didn't it? Those that have good connectivity were able to get through reasonably seamlessly, but those that don't, and ag is increasingly a precision business, and you just can't operate without great broadband or internet and cell phone coverage.
This is Sarah's Country. Now I'm going to a wonderful subject expert commentator, no other than TUANZ CEO Craig Young, who joins us now. Craig, what do you make of that? Can't quite hear Craig.
Kia ora, Sarah. Sorry about that.
Wasn't the internet's fault, was it?
No, standard, someone's on mute. Yeah, you think I'd know better. What I was going to say was, look, I think that you can take a lot of positives out of that. To start with, everybody's on the same page in that we need to invest in improving rural broadband, whether it's catching up to urban and getting it back to some form of service that can be used, or putting more money in. Certainly, they have different views on what should be done next, though.
Yeah, now so let's talk about Labor and what they have been able to get their hands on the checkbook and actually do something with this term. Announcing recently another $60 million, and believes that it needs to go in the hands of our local small providers. Even though we've got over 90% of our coverage of this country at a sufficient level, so Damien O'Connor says. Do you really believe that throwing more money at it has to be targeted this time?
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple of things. One is that really they haven't done much during their term in government, mainly because the previous government let a large number of contracts just before the election last time. So we've been looking at the rollout of that. They did put some money in earlier in the year as part of the COVID reaction. Because as we know, and I think I've talked to you about this before, there are significant parts of New Zealand where there was investment several years ago that hasn't kept up. We've got capacity problems. So it's about 15 million to go into there. But like most government programs, it's ASAP or when they get around to releasing the contracts. And then they've got another 60 million. I think what they've done is they've gone, what can we do in the short term? And they haven't really thought about the long term. So what you're getting, I think, is from the government, you're getting, here's a chunk of money. We know what needs to be done in the short term. And then you're getting from the National Party, you're getting, here's a big chunk of money for the next 10 years, but here's no detail. And so somewhere in between those two things, I think the right answer is, because I think we need a 10-year view across all of government, whoever's in party, to bring rural broadband up to scratch.
I've just got a comment here from Marie. There's no networks in the backcountry of the Taranaki and it's really expensive to get hooked up. No cell phone coverage whatsoever over these large parcels. And across Wanganui, Taranaki, all through that national park, if you're in the periphery of that, sayonara, really. And it's interesting, just picking up Mark Cameron at the Marks, Mark Cameron and Mark Patterson, both say they live this every day. Yet Eugenie didn't, she sounded like she knew it was a problem, but, didn't really have anything tangible.
Yeah, and if you don't live it each day, you don't really understand it. And I think, particularly those that live in urban New Zealand, we get so comfortable realising, that this wonderful fibre service and, we can just live off that. But we know that rural New Zealand has a vast number of challenges. We know that the money that's gone into the wireless ISPs, the regional ones, has, exponentially provided benefit. And so really pleased to hear the Minister last week saying that the money was going to go towards, those sort of local solutions, which I think is really important. And there's got to be more that's targeted. And I think what we've got to also think about is we're not just going to chuck money at expanding coverage. We've got to improve what we've got, but we've also got to make sure that we make the most of the technology that's coming. So it might be that we need to actually subsidise installation of things like new satellite dishes on people's houses. There are new satellites in the air and they are way better than they used to be, significantly better. So, some of these more really remote places might have a better service on satellite, which is a new type, and that the government should put some money into actually helping them. It's almost getting down to the point of house by house or property by property. And one of the things that came out in our recent symposium from the WISP is we don't actually know who's not connected. We have an idea, but we don't actually know who and what the problems are. And that's one of the things I'd like to see done in the next term, is actually sit down and come up with a view on, who hasn't got it and what can we do to fix it.
Hey, governments love a good old working party and a good old review to throw some money at. That could be one. Yeah. Another big survey.
No, I'd like it to actually be something we could use.
Exactly.
So,
No, I was saying it could be a possibility you could get across the line.
Well, the telcos know who they've got connected and what service they've giving them. They just aren't that good at sharing it with others so that we can actually see across the board. And I think that's probably one of the other things that, rural is really good at collaborating and working across the paddock and across the fence. Why can't we encourage the industry to do so as well?
Oh, absolutely. I hear you. And I tell you what, rural are also really good at saying, give me the bucket of money and we'll get on with it and get it done as well. Across the board on a lot of topics we're talking here tonight. Thank you so much, CEO for TUANZ, the Telecommunication Users Association of New Zealand, Craig Young. This is Sarah's Country.